Colin Powell dedicated his extraordinary life to public service because he never stopped believing in America.
The current U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, speaks out about a man who once held the position as the nation mourns the loss of Colin Powell. Hear from some Ohioans who worked closely with him. Next month, kids as young as 5 years old could get the COVID-19 vaccine. We look at how the state is preparing for this next phase of shots. And not quite right. How aviation experts helped get a mistake on the Ohio license plate fixed and fast. Thank you for joining us for Face the State today. I'm Tracy Townsend. A nation in mourning over the loss of its first black Secretary of State. Colin Powell died this week from COVID-19 complications. The public servant and general passed away at 84 years old. Governor Mike DeWine, who served in the U.S. Senate when Powell was Secretary of State, had this to say about Powell's death.
I had the opportunity to work with him in regard to helping people with AIDS, particularly Haiti. So had a lot of good memories of my relationship with him. We've lost a true American hero today.
10 TV's Richard Solomon spoke with a Central Ohio man who says Powell inspired him.
So many words can be said about Colin Powell, the first black Secretary of State, former Joint Chiefs, a Vietnam veteran. But for Leonard Hubert,
just a man of integrity.
Powell was his inspiration.
One would consider a true patriot.
Hubert had the pleasure of meeting Powell years ago, several occasions.
He was someone who actually spoke volumes of the work that he was doing and took pride and honor in doing it.
Hubert himself even walking in Powell's footsteps as the first black person to ever hold the position of State Agency Director for the USDA Ohio Farm Service Agency in 2017 under the Trump administration.
Those of us who happen to be African Americans on the Republican side was able to look at and say, wow, if he can do that, certainly we can excel in any endeavor.
Paying respect for the former Secretary of State, even here in Columbus.
His legacy will be remembered as who he really was.
Powell served 4 top roles under 4 presidents, a man with many titles, and Hubert knows the work he accomplished will last for years to come.
I'm so proud that I have had this chance to serve my nation.
In Columbus, Richard Solomon, 10 TV News.
Those who knew Colin Powell say he was larger than life. Peter Mansour, the chair of military history at The Ohio State University, met Powell twice. He spoke with 10 TV's Kevin Landers about Powell's legacy.
He was a man of character, and that definitely comes through when you meet him in person.
Retired United States Army officer and military historian Professor Peter Mansour says the passing of Colin Powell is a loss for the nation.
Colin Powell's legacy will be that he served the country to the best of his ability in uniform and as a civilian. He was the first black chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff during a very tumultuous time that included the end of the Cold War and the first Gulf War.
Powell rose from humble beginnings to become one of the nation's greatest military leaders.
Well, this is the great success story. He grew up in the South Bronx. His parents were Jamaican immigrants. He went through New York public schools, and this is really, I think, a great example for young people to emulate, that you don't necessarily have to be a child of means to succeed, provided you work hard.
Powell was the national security advisor to President Ronald Reagan at the end of the Cold War. As chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, he was the architect of the invasion of Panama in 1989 and of the Persian Gulf War in 1991, which ousted Saddam Hussein from Kuwait but left him in power in Iraq.
An interesting legacy as a military leader. He wasn't necessarily for invading Iraq. He kind of put the brakes on the first Bush administration and made them really think through the support of the American people for that conflict.
In February of 2003, Powell addressed the nation to support the decision to invade Iraq, in which he detailed Saddam Hussein's possession of weapons of mass destruction. After troops invaded in March of that year, it was clear the intelligence was wrong. Powell later called it a blot on his record.
That he should have interrogated the intelligence more closely, and had he done so, maybe the outcome of that time might have been different. The invasion of Iraq being probably the greatest strategic mistake in the history of the United States.
When Powell left office, he devoted his time to helping young people. In 1997, he founded America's Promise to help at-risk children. He would go on to win the Medal of Freedom twice. Kevin Landers, 10 TV News.
Powell was a Republican who supported Senator Barack Obama when he ran for president. During his time as chairman of the Joint Chiefs, he oversaw 28 crises. He was forced to resign by George W. Bush when he was reelected in 2004. Powell was fully vaccinated when he died. A spokesperson at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center, where he passed, said his immune system had been compromised by multiple myeloma, for which he'd been undergoing treatment. Some people are saying his death is proof that COVID-19 vaccines are not working. Governor DeWine says Powell's death actually proves the opposite.
It's been written by some doctors who referenced the tragedy of Colin Powell dying, and what are the lessons there. And this is not original with me. I've read it a number of different places, but what doctors say is one of the lessons is that if we want to prevent people who are in their 80s or who have much younger, who have significant medical problems from getting really sick, the most important thing we can do is to continue, all of us, to continue to get vaccinated.
Our verified team dug deeper into the science behind the rare deadly breakthrough cases. Here's Evan Koslov.
Following the passing of General Colin Powell, we've seen a lot of rumors spreading on social media, so we want to stick to the facts. His family wrote on Facebook that he died due to complications from COVID-19 and that he was fully vaccinated. For that reason, some online are using this as an opportunity to cast doubt on vaccine effectiveness. So let's verify by looking at the data. Our main source is the CDC, which has loads of data on hospitalizations and deaths. We also got some added context from Dr. William Schaffner from Vanderbilt University. According to the CDC, as of October 12th, more than 7,000 people died and just under 25,000 went to the hospital with COVID after being fully vaccinated. And obviously that sounds pretty scary, but we have to consider that this is a very small percentage of people that got the shot. The CDC says over 189 million people have been fully vaccinated nationwide, meaning that the chances of being hospitalized with COVID after getting the shot is 0.01%, and the chance of death is 0.004%. That's like 1 out of 10,000 vaccinated people going to the hospital and 4 out of 100,000 dying, meaning it's not just rare, it's very rare. As for those who are unvaccinated, the rates of hospitalization and death are far greater.
Well over 90% of people who are hospitalized today with serious COVID are the unvaccinated among us. Over 90%.
Take this graph from the CDC showing a snapshot of COVID death rates from 16 jurisdictions over a 4-month period. In August alone, they estimate that an unvaccinated person was 11.3 times more likely to die from COVID. Simply put, some breakthrough cases are inevitable, but it's a far lower rate than if you aren't vaccinated. With your Verify, I'm Evan Koslov.
And if you have something you want us to verify, email us at verify@10tv.com or send us a message on social media. Thousands of business owners across the country are getting ready for guidance from the Occupational Safety and Health Administration on President Biden's vaccine mandate announced last month as the Department of Labor finalizes the text. 10 TV's Clay Gordon talked with the Ohio Chamber of Commerce to see where it stands on the topic.
Federal regulations and possibly state laws requiring or preventing vaccine mandates for employees.
318,000 employers in Ohio should be able to regulate the health and safety of their private property, their business, the way they see fit.
President and CEO of the Ohio Chamber of Commerce, Steve Stivers, says the chamber opposes all of it. Here's why.
While 99.5% of our members will likely never mandate a vaccine, We believe if they think it's important enough, they should be able to. And frankly, the free market will hold them accountable if they do. Customers may choose not to do business with them or may choose to do more business with them.
Cost also comes into play with COVID-19 testing.
Because if an employee chooses not to get vaccinated and then they have to be tested as a result of it, the employee who made that choice should pay that cost.
And other employees may be footing the bill for unvaccinated coworkers.
If you want to talk about the single most influential factor in increasing everyone's insurance premiums next year, it's going to be people who don't get their vaccination.
The Kaiser Family Foundation says between June and August of this year, preventable COVID-related hospitalizations amongst vaccinated adults has cost more than $5 billion.
An average hospitalization for COVID-19 costs $50,000, and your average shot costs nothing.
The unvaccinated people have a higher chance of going to the hospital than vaccinated people, because even though a very small number of vaccinated people will still get a breakthrough case of COVID, in most cases, they don't get particularly sick and definitely don't go to the hospital and incur big bills.
And again, that was Clay Gordon reporting. Now, parents are waiting for the FDA to approve the COVID-19 vaccine for kids between the ages of 5 to 11. And the state is getting ready to give those shots. Governor DeWine detailed the plan. The first week a COVID-19 vaccine is approved for that age group. 347,000 doses will arrive here in our state. Providers have already put in orders for 172,000 doses. All children's hospitals, will send out notices to parents and patients, and roughly 25% of school districts will offer vaccine clinics. Columbus Public Health is also outlining some plans for vaccinating children, again in that same age range, 5 to 11. The health department's administrators say once it's approved by the FDA, the plan is to make it accessible for parents. And that means having evening and weekend hours for the vaccine clinic. Dr. Mashika Roberts says the order is already in for those vaccines.
We have 2 clinics right now that have evening hours. And so that will be accessible to the 5 to 11-year-olds for parents to bring their kids during those evening hours. We are also in the process of partnering with Nationwide Children's Hospital and looking to see if we can tag team some Saturday hours that would also allow those working parents more time to get their kids in.
Ohio will expand the opportunity for those younger kids to enter for a chance to win the thousands of dollars in college scholarships as an incentive. The new unemployment report shows benefits fell last week to a new low. Nationwide, unemployment claims dropped by 6,000. Last week, a total of 290,000 people applied for unemployment benefits. It's a sign layoffs are declining as companies work to hold on to employees. That's the fewest people to apply for benefits since March 14th of 2020. As for Ohio, just over 7,500 people applied for unemployment last week. That's the lowest since September 18th. Election Day, November 2nd, will be here before we know it. Up next, we take a look at one of the levies on the ballot and how it could impact policing in Pataskala.
You know, losing them at the rate that we do, it's impossible to keep up.
Staffing issues are straining all kinds of industries. The Pataskala Police Department says without the approval of a ballot issue next month, more and more officers will likely leave. Pataskala has had a 1% income tax over the last 10 years that has helped the police department. Well, now the city is asking for a 1.5% tax to stop the bleeding within the department. 10 TV's Brian Somerville talks with an officer who says it's needed.
It's a flat sign causing a vicious circle.
First and foremost, we don't have enough officers.
Chief Deputy Michael Bowles says full staff is 23 officers, a number the department hasn't seen since January of 2020. Since 1996, PPD has employed 74 full-time officers.
So that should give you an idea of the amount of turnover that we've had.
Currently, PPD has about 2 officers per shift, covering almost 30 square miles and 143 road miles, and that doesn't cut it.
It makes us reactive and takes away our ability to be proactive and try to get to some things before they become a problem.
It's competitive, recruiting, training, but most of all, pay. Pataskala has the lowest hourly rate of pay in Licking County, which means even though they are training officers, with a high turnover and low pay, PPD training.
That's correct.
Is setting officers up nicely for other jobs.
Extremely aggravating, especially because when you look at the time that we have invested in these individuals to get them hired and trained, you know, you're literally looking at about a 7-month turnaround to hire a new officer.
Consider this. In 1996, Pataskala's population was 9,000. In 2021, it's doubled. In 96, there were 20 officers. Today, there's 22. In November, Pataskala will vote on a 1.5% income tax. If passed, it would up hourly rates, bring on 6 new officers, and equip them with gear, cruisers, and computers. If you're thinking this sounds familiar, let's refocus.
Obviously very disappointing for us.
To March of 2020, when the measure failed by a 60 to 40% vote. 20 months removed, the department prepares to go back to the polls. Nervous.
Yeah, I would say so.
Knowing without these changes, officers will continue to leave.
Losing them at the rate that we do, it's impossible to keep up.
And services to people who live here will be on the line. In Pataskala, Bryant Somerville, 10 TV News.
Pataskala has also been offering a hotline for people to call to get information about the issue and specifically what it means if passed. You can find that number with this story at 10tv.com. The Pataskala police levy is just one of several levies voters will weigh in on next month. Franklin County, Upper Arlington, and Franklin Township also have police levies on the ballot, as well as towns in Delaware, Fairfield, and Union counties. 10TV partnered with the Dispatch to put together a 2021 voters guide. You can get a link sent straight to your phone. Just text the word VOTE to 614-460-3345. U.S. Senator Sherrod Brown getting behind candidates in two key 2022 races. This week, Senator Brown endorsed Dayton Mayor Nan Whaley for governor.
I've known Nan for years. I've seen her deal with some of the toughest problems that any mayor could deal with. KKK rallies, tornadoes, mass shooting, and now a pandemic. Dayton has been strong with good, strong leadership.
John Cranley is another Democrat who's running for governor. On the Republican side, Governor Mike DeWine is running for re-election. He's up against Central Ohio farmer and business owner Joe Blystone and former U.S. Congressman and former U.S. Senate candidate Jim Renacci. Now, just last week, Senator Sherrod Brown announced that he's backing U.S. Congressional Rep Tim Ryan to flip the open Senate seat that's going to be left open by Rob Portman. The seat is left open by, again, Portman. Portman's retiring. Attorney Morgan Harper is also running on the Democratic side of that race, so that's a race we'll watch and report to you. On the Republican side, the contenders there, those are the candidates. They include former Ohio Treasurer Josh Mandel, author and venture capitalist J.D. Vance, former state Republican Chair Jane Timken, and also car dealer Bernie Moreno and investment banker Mike Gibbons. Former President Trump's former aide could soon face some charges after he was held in contempt of Congress last week. Steve Bannon refused to comply with the congressional committee investigating the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. The House of Representatives voted to hold Bannon in contempt of Congress. 9 Republicans voted yes, including Ohio's Anthony Gonzalez. Most Republicans say that the committee did not have the right to issue a subpoena in the first place, among them Ohio's Jim Jordan.
This is from the Select Committee's own report. Quote, his efforts to plan political activity. That's the standard. You're involved in political activity, they're going to investigate you. We know what this is really about. This is about getting at President Trump.
Bannon has said he didn't comply because President Trump has asserted executive privilege despite no longer being president, and Bannon didn't work for the administration at the time. The vote by the full House to hold Bannon in criminal contempt of Congress sets up a referral to the Department of Justice, which will then have to decide whether to prosecute. His work helped inspire the film The Butler. Well, now he's promoting a new book in Columbus, how his experience in the capital city inspired him. The unveiling of Ohio's new license plate design also unveiled a mistake. Coming up, how social media played a role in getting things turned around. A Columbus native's work helped inspire a 2013 film you might have seen.
I'm Cecil Gaines. I'm the new butler.
You hear nothing, you see nothing. You only serve.
You know he got that job himself. The White House called him. He didn't call the White House.
Oh, The Butler stars Forrest Whitaker, Oprah Winfrey, and John Cusack. That movie was inspired by an article in the Washington Post called "A Butler Well Served by This Election." And the author of that article is Columbus native Will Haygood. The East High School graduate was back in town this week to promote his new book. It's called Colorization: 100 Years of Black Films in a White World. And it profiles 100 years of black movies from Gone with the Wind to Black Panther. Haygood looks at the struggles and the triumphs of the artists and the films themselves as a prism to explore black culture and racism in America.
I think the entire country was forced to wake up in light of the George Floyd murder. You know, we all were heartbroken by it. It was in public. It was a very public murder. You know, we have serious issues with law enforcement and minorities in this country. That problem has to be fixed. It must be fixed. And then we had the January 6th insurrection in Washington, D.C., you know. And so, you know, there are certain people in this country who seem to not want the country to survive with this Bill of Rights, with this U.S. Constitution, and with its civil rights laws, you know. And so we have to look at these issues. Why are these things happening in this country? And I think that that moment is here. Martin Luther King Jr. had famously said that if America is destroyed, it will be destroyed from within, not from without. Now, those are Martin Luther King Jr.'s words decades ago. And so here we are now wondering if we can survive as a nation. It's very serious. It's the most serious issue that we all have to face right now.
We have a link to the book at 10tv.com/featured links. A mistake on Ohio's new license plate design took over Twitter this week. So take a look. On the left is the first version, which the state acknowledges is incorrect. The right is the updated version. The difference is the right flyer. In the first version, it's backwards, pushing the banner instead of pulling it. Unless you're an expert in aviation, perhaps you didn't even notice that error. But as 10TV's Lindsay Mills explains, many people did catch it.
Fran and I have a particular interest in the Wright brothers because they are from Dayton. They did their initial work in Dayton.
Governor Mike DeWine unveiled a new design for Ohio's license plate. According to Ohio BMV Registrar Charlie Norman, he says his team was behind the design and it was done in-house by staff. Here's a look at the plate that was unveiled earlier in the day, the first version. This image actually shows the flyer pushing the banner instead of pulling it. Essentially, it's backwards. Here's how we know. This is an image of the flyer from the Wright Brothers National Memorial Visitor Center in North Carolina. Orville Wright is pictured flying the plane. The smaller part is in the front. Also, we talked to Brian Stromkowski, the assistant director for the Center of Aviation Studies at Ohio State University.
Being in aviation, when I see that image, I notice right away that the airplane is turned around backwards. And I think that's just natural to assume that in modern day, because we're so used to seeing the small part of the airplane, right, that back wing on the back of the airplane.
The state has acknowledged the error. In a statement to 10TV, an Ohio Department of Public Safety spokeswoman writes, "We are aware that the plane on the new Ohio license plate unveiled Thursday morning was oriented in the wrong direction. We regret this mistake and have fixed the image. This is the correct design that will be reflected on all new plates issued to Ohio drivers."
And we thank Lindsay Mills for that story. Last year, DeWine signed a bill that created 33 specialty license plates, but the new design marks the first update our state has made to its standard license plate since 2013. In the meantime, we say thank you so much for joining us here today. Remember, if it affects you, your family, and Ohio, we're here to make sure those accountable face the state.